The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Hi, I'm Nicole Jacinto. Join us on Healthline with 𝗵𝗶𝗶 as we discuss the latest health and medical topics with doctors from 𝗵𝗶𝗶. For a healthier and uplifting lifestyle, tune into Healthline with 𝗵𝗶𝗶 on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. Radio Bandido TV. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Watch and listen to Healthline with 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶, Mondays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
You're about to experience Healthline, a show where doctors from 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶 interact with you for a healthy, uplifting lifestyle. Moderated by Nicole Jacinto. You've got questions, we've got answers. So welcome to Healthline.
Hi everybody and welcome to Healthline with 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶. I'm your host Nicole Jacinto. Happy to bring you another episode of Healthline with 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶. And good afternoon to those who are in the Philippines and in Hong Kong. We're the same time zone. For those in Japan, you're an hour ahead. In the States, it's 12 hours or behind, or 14 or 15. Or if you're in Honolulu, well, you're 18 hours behind. I just want to say hello to all the folks watching there and those of course, of our friends in Madrid who are 6 hours behind. But okay, so today we are going to talk about heart issues for younger people. And we have with us again, Dr. Paul 𝗂𝗏𝗏. Thank you for being on the show, Doctor.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, you're always welcome. And Dr. 𝗂𝗏𝗏 is a cardiology specialist. So so today's show is centered more on younger people, or specifically people in their 20s. And often we don't think of heart issues when we're in our 20s, or that we have to pay attention to heart issues to people in their 20s unless something dramatic happens, no, doctor? And also, this show can also be for those younger than 20. So, you know how to start already building a heart healthy lifestyle. And for those who are a little older than 20, well, maybe you know someone in their 20s. Maybe it's your kid and you can nag them.
Correct. Yeah.
Doctor, what why is it important to start taking care of your heart and these issues while you're in your 20s? Like to start really paying attention and not, I'm 20, I don't have that. We often have the mentality that we don't have to pay attention to it.
Exactly that, Nicole. Because we know that our health in the future, like in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, are actually rooted in the habits that we form in our 20s. It's the foundation that we do in the 20s, 30s that will shape our general health in our 50s, 60s, etc. And we know that a lot of people nowadays do suffer from heart attacks in their 30s or 40s, which was unheard of before. So now it's becoming an epidemic. So it's not just about being happy or being just living your life in your 20s. We need to think that the 20s is the foundation for the health, our general health for the rest of our lives. And we have to eliminate the mindset that we are invincible. So it's not the fault of the younger generation or the young individuals. It is really because of evolution. So at a young age, our frontal cortex is not yet developed. We don't have any fear. So we are fearless. We do a lot of experiments, bad habits, smoking, vaping, alcohol, drugs, because our fail-safe mechanism is not yet put into our brains. So we have to destroy that notion that we are invincible and try to build or be careful, because we need to build our future starting from an age of as early as the 20s or late 20s, Nicole.
Thank you, doctor. And it's true. No, we have heard. I mean, even if you're not so into health or anything, we've heard of a lot more people getting heart attacks or serious illnesses, that heart disease in their 20s. And as you mentioned, this when we're in our 20s, it's evolution. This is part of where we start building habits, and we do things that will affect our heart health in the 30s, 40s, and onwards. And it doesn't get talked about much, doctor. And of course, with just, I think, any of our world, or culture, anywhere that you'll find, in the last 100 years at least, I can think, well, maybe 50s. I'll just say that it's like 20s are for going out and doing things, that, and we've often heard people say, better do that now because you're still young. And yes, it's often true, but also I'm so happy that you're able to join us today, and remind people that it's also a time for not really paranoia, but maybe more caution. And I think maybe the younger ones these days will be more open to it. So, doctor, what habits can harm us when we're, or what habits are formed in young adulthood? So I don't know if that applies to 20-year-olds, or maybe those even younger, like they're still in high school, because it's kind of you go back a little bit, what you do in high school, then you can change it in college. But whatever it is, what habits that are formed in young adulthood have the biggest impact on your heart
Yeah.
health?
Thank you, Nicole. So, initially, so of course, when people are in their teenage years, they're actually trying a lot of things. And with the money in their 20s, they might be already earning, they might be doing their first job. And with adult money and those bad habits like vices, those can have a big impact in the future. So there are a lot of studies that say that people who try cigarette smoking, for example, or vaping, or illegal drugs or illicit drugs, or drinking alcohol in their teenage years or in their 20s are more likely to be more addictive, or more doing those bad habits still in the future. So if, for example, they abstain or they do not partake in those vices, the chances of them having those vices in the future actually become very, very, very low.
Mhm.
So another bad habit that we often do in our 20s or even earlier is to do a lot of poor diet choices. So, for example, nowadays it's so easy to eat a lot of fast food.
Yes.
We know that, for example, the uh, food preservatives are already being transformed to trans fats. So the previous food preservatives that are carcinogenic or cause cancers have been eliminated or been replaced by trans fats. And the
Mhm.
trans fats are fats that we cannot digest. So, for example, you buy a burger, just
Mhm.
leave it on the table, it will still be there and might look edible even for a few days. The fact is, the trans fats that the bacteria cannot digest, and it makes the shelf life longer. We
Oh,
cannot also digest. Yeah. So when we eat the
gosh, doctor.
burger or fries, the trans fats goes to the liver, and it now causes fatty liver in the near future. So we have a lot of patients with fatty liver in their 30s, 40s, and they keep asking me or wondering how or where did they get those fatty liver. And of course, exercise is also a big habit that should be formed as
Mhm.
early as possible, like in their adolescent years or early 20s or late 20s. People nowadays are becoming sedentary. We know that people in their 20s will be starting to work. They go to work, wake up very early, commute to work, maybe 2 to 3 hours of traffic. In the workplace, they're just sitting on a desk, answering calls or typing on the computer. When they go home, another 2, 3 hours of commute. And when they go home, they're already very tired, and they might order just takeout or order food delivery, which is bad, fast food.
Mhm.
And they're too tired to exercise or even move. So we have a lot of people in their 20s that are already obese. And
Mhm.
actually, the habit started earlier on. So this is, of course, if you are obese at an earlier age, the start of the high blood pressure or
Mhm.
heart attacks, the risk becomes earlier.
Mhm.
So people before in the 1970s, 60s, 70s were generally thinner than people who are actually in their 20s now. because of those bad habits. And of course, another bad habit I want to call out is taking a lot of pain relievers.
Aha.
So we have had a lot of patients who have chronic pain. So
Mhm.
they're because of they're sitting on the desk
Yeah.
all day, they have back pain, and they will take a lot of, for example, mefenamic acid or a lot of over-the-counter pain medications, which of course, if it's taken too much, can have or can cause kidney injury. So safer is to take, for
Um,
example, just biogesic, yeah, paracetamol, and not take those over-the-counter medications. And of course, we, as a preventive aspect, we need also to check, for example, for cancers that happen early on. So for females, they need to do breast exams as early as in their 20s. Breast cancer incidence is on the rise. For
mhm.
males, testicular cancer, so some exam every now and then. And of course, for females, they need also to do some pap smear every 3 years just for screening for cervical cancer.
Mhm.
And another preventive habit that should be enforced is vaccination.
Mm.
So we already had, yeah, just recently a pandemic. We know the importance of vaccines, how they prevent the spread, and how they mitigate the effects of the disease. So flu vaccines every year is very important. We know that respiratory diseases are linked to heart diseases in the future.
Mhm.
So vaccination should also be current. And of course, hepatitis vaccine, these tetanus vaccines, these are vaccines that are
Mhm.
often ignored when we are already adults because we don't have the pediatrician to remind us anymore.
Yes. We don't have our parents or the sort of scheduling that happens when you're an infant and then your pediatrician, exactly. Doctor, I'd like
Yeah,
to pick up on some things you said that was so well said, and how you said it, you explained a lot of things. So I just want to highlight them a little bit. When you mention fast food, because we keep hearing you shouldn't eat fast food, blah blah blah. But I mean, the scientific fact is, as you said, there's trans fat. So they've taken out carcinogenics, maybe because of okay, they discovered this causes cancer, that causes cancer, or can somehow mixed with other things can do that. But the trans fats, as you said, bacteria cannot digest them. So if you leave a burger out there for days, it's still edible. But the thing is, if bacteria can't digest them, then we also can't digest them, our gastric juices and all that. So does that build up in the body? That,
yeah. So it actually leads to fatty liver. And
okay.
actually, there's a deluge of patients now with fatty liver. And
Yeah.
we know that fatty liver, the longer that you have it, so if you start at an early age, for example, in your 20s, the risk for liver cancer, though rare, becomes higher. And of
Mhm.
course, the risk for cirrhosis or
Yeah.
what we call the pagkabulok ng liver becomes also higher. So
Mhm.
those are bad side effects of the trans fats. We usually ignore them, but
Yeah.
uh, if they're taken at a larger amount, chances are will have those risks to contend with in the near future. So at
Yeah.
an early age, better to we
Mhm.
often advise our patients or our peers to cook at home,
Yes.
prepare food because if you're hungry and you just want a quick bite,
Yeah.
there's really it's really convenient to get fast food. The convenience is so tempting that you might excuse yourself and you might find out in the past 30 days you're eating fast food every day.
Yes.
But if you have the habit of preparing your food, preparing, for example, in the morning meals for the whole day,
Mm-hmm.
then of course the convenience of the fast food is gone because you already have the food prepared for you. And of course, it's much more healthier, and you're in charge of the ingredients and the amount of food that goes into your body. Because if you eat fast food, not only are they full of trans fats, they're also refined and they have a lot of excess calories without much nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you want to feel full longer, you need to indulge in proteins
Mm-hmm.
and fiber. Those nutrients or those protein and fiber will make you feel full longer, and you will not crave for more food as easy as if you're eating carbs. If you eat carbs, or you eat a lot of fast foods, you get a sugar rush, you
Mhm.
get a dopamine hit, but you also crash and burn a little after a few hours because the
And you
sugar
look
is
for
easily
those.
digested.
You look for
Yeah,
those. Yes. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned all of this because you understand also that the landscape is that we do have to make more of an effort to prepare at home. And you mentioned traffic earlier. Yes, it takes about 3 hours to get to work. You're tired already when you get there. And then you do work and you sit in that chair, then we'll move to the painkillers next. And then you go home and it's just it's part of I guess, modernizing. But we have to look out for our health and know that these are the factors. It's not like how it was for a very long time, like if say hundreds of years ago, for a very long time, things didn't change or they didn't speed up as much until the industrial um, revolution. But now things are speeding up even faster, and even if it requires an effort, at least you've informed our audience out there of why. Because sometimes people are like, yeah, but why? Okay, so that's why. And also, you mentioned the traffic and having back pain or sitting the whole day at work or whatever it is you do, and just overindulging in painkillers. You did mention that paracetamol is one of the safest, and people do tend to I'll just take the stronger one. And as you
yeah,
said, it's
correct.
bad for kidney. It's also bad for the
Yes,
stomach, no? I mean,
yeah,
if you overdo it. And also, could it be hiding symptoms? But there are a lot of people who are in physical pain now, no?
yeah.
But does it get to a point where if you're in too much pain, you should go and get yourself checked out because for some reason something has happened to your body or your muscles or whatever it is. And the lack of exercise also, doctor. I'm glad you mentioned that. I just like to highlight the points that you mentioned because yes, by the time you get home, you're tired, or if you wake up and you exercise in the morning, it's difficult, no? I mean, it is difficult, but um, I guess if you make a few changes, then it somehow builds up to help everyone. Uh, kind of really digest what you said and understand it, and it help them kind of apply it to their lives. You mentioned some vaccines, doctor. When you talked about vaccines, well, you did say that any respiratory illness can be bad for the heart. So you did mention the COVID vaccine, and we kind of know about that more. When you talked about vaccines for cancers also, do you mean vaccines like the vaccine for the HPV and
Yeah.
all that? Mhm. All
Yeah,
right.
so of course, yeah. So the adult vaccines are very important. The HPV vaccine. So it's
Mhm.
not just for females. It also can prevent oral cancers in males. Of course, hepatitis vaccine. There's a titer test that you should take. If the titer is already very low, you should have a booster.
Mhm.
So of course, flu vaccine is yearly. So some, for example, individuals, or for example, females who are pregnant
Mhm.
and maybe exposed to a respiratory syncytial virus should have the RSV vaccine.
Mhm.
Of course, those patients who have, for example, diabetes or immunocompromised might benefit from a pneumococcal vaccine. So there's a lot of vaccines actually for the adults that we don't actually are, or at least my patients are not aware that they should be taking because the prevailing mindset is the vaccines are just for kids.
Yes.
And once you're an adult, yeah, once you're an adult, the antibody should already be formed. So, but the COVID-19 is actually an eye opener. And
Yeah.
it actually put the vaccines in the forefront, in the limelight, because we know that a lot of diseases now, communicable diseases, can actually be prevented by uh, having your vaccination updated.
Mhm.
And it's not just the vaccines that were administered at a young age or when we're children. We also have to be there might be boosters that we might be lacking, so they need to
Mhm.
consult their primary care physician.
Okay. Um, Thank you, doctor. So of course, you've mentioned smoking, drinking excessive alcohol, drinking excessively, and perhaps trying illicit drugs, or even if they're prescribed but you don't have the condition. Yeah, I mean, still everything is excreted through the kidneys or the liver. Can you just quickly tell us, doctor, why smoking really affects our heart health?
Yeah.
Like the
So
main.
yeah, smoking, of course, it really the main problem with smoking in terms of the cardiovascular health is that it destroys the arteries.
Okay.
So it makes the arteries inflamed and prone to develop cholesterol plaques. And if you get the cholesterol plaque over time, it will become more and more, and the blood vessel will become tighter and tighter. Once the cholesterol plaque closes the blood vessel, it will cause a heart attack.
Mhm.
And of course, this can happen. The blockage of the artery can happen also in the lower extremities. Actually, smoking is linked to what we call Berger's disease. So this is blockage of the arteries going to the legs. And when it's severe, can cause the patient to lose his or her limbs, lower extremities, because of the blockage of the arteries.
Mhm.
And of course, smoking can also cause strokes. So not only blockages in the heart, but it can also cause blockages in the blood vessels going to the brain.
Mhm.
And of course, smoking can also cause what we call COPD, or an obstructive form of lung disease, because the COPD impairs getting the oxygen from the air. So we need the heart is just a pump. We need the oxygen. The oxygen travels through the blood, and the heart just pumps the blood going to the different blood vessels. So
Okay.
if you lack the oxygen capacity from the lungs, your heart will also suffer because it also needs oxygen. So
See.
it really impacts the whole body, not just the heart, but of course, you have to think about the
Great.
heart because it is one of the more important organs. But it can also affect the legs and of course the brain.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Now, doctor, let's talk about lack of sleep. How does that affect and what habits perhaps people have? Well, maybe people have lack of sleep now, even when they're younger, from their teenage years or in their 20s. But how does lack of sleep affect? Perhaps you've seen the effect on those who are in their 20s still, and is there an effect later on? Is there
Yeah.
such?
So yeah. So nowadays, people in their 20s still party. So we used to party up to our 30s and then we got tired. So, but in your 20s, maybe you're still very strong, still very full of energy, and you might party late at night. And of course, the mindset in your 20s, if you're still in your 20s, is that you're invincible. You have a lot of energy. I remember when I was in my 20s, I could party until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and go to work the following day as a medical doctor as early as 6 or 7 a.m. Sometimes,
Mhm.
of course, as a medical doctor, when we were in training, sometimes we go on duty without sleep for 36 hours.
Mhm.
So when we were in our 20s, we could just brush that aside. The following day, we'll sleep, and then we repeat the process, go to a 36-hour duty again. So,
Mhm.
but we know that if you lack sleep, the body is getting stressed, and the body produces a lot of stress hormones and increases or accelerates the what we call atherosclerosis. What it is it's the cholesterol calcification of the artery. So it's similar to smoking.
Mhm.
It's just a bad habit that increases the vascular age. So, for example, if you're not sleeping a lot in your 20s, your vasculature, meaning the arteries, might be at an age of 50 when you're still in your 30s, because lack of sleep really accelerates that calcification or deposit of cholesterol plaques in the blood vessels.
Mhm.
And of course, if we know that sleep is actually the time when we are actually getting healed. So
Mhm.
it's really important not only for the heart or the vasculature, but for the whole body, especially the brain.
Mhm.
So if you are chronically sleep deprived or insomnia, then chances are the decisions that you do when you're awake will be bad because your brain, your function is not as good. Your brain cells might be still fatigued, and you might not be thinking correctly. So bad. This is where bad habits might creep in because you're not in full control of your senses.
Right.
And just to mention, yeah, just to mention, I think nowadays why we are really the lack of sleep is really an epidemic is because of our gadgets.
Yeah.
So we take our gadgets every day, we hold it, and we even bring it to our bedside. And
Yes.
most of the people now in their 20s will chat or will watch YouTube while
Mhm.
they're lying in bed. And they will go to the clinic complaining of insomnia when the answer is really very obvious. They're staring at the source of light. So if you stare at the source of light, melatonin production is suppressed. So you need at least 30 minutes to 1 hour of no light source, especially if you're sensitive, for the melatonin to be produced. So
Mhm.
if you're really staring at your gadget, even when you're in bed, you're forming a bad habit. You're instructing your brain that you're still not ready to sleep because you have a task at hand and you're doing it. And this can lead to, of course, bad consequences.
Mhm.
So the person might be confused when he or she wakes up,
Mhm.
and this might cause accidents, or the patient might need to smoke, or might be tempted to drink alcohol to fall asleep or to relax. This can lead to a lot of bad habits.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
really, yeah, lack of sleep is really, I think, one of the more important epidemics now, especially with the advent of handheld gadgets. They're everywhere and people are using them all the time. So we usually tell our patients to have a rule as much as possible. For example, 1 hour before they sleep, they should put their gadget, of course, assuming that it's not very important,
Mhm.
on airplane mode 1 hour before sleep. And of course, have no light sources. So
Mhm.
blackout curtains, no television, at least 30 minutes before bedtime so that they will sleep using it in a natural way because we hate giving people sedatives because
Yes.
they're very addictive. Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of patients who rely on sedatives cannot anymore sleep without a sedative. It's difficult to take them off. So we have to change the sedative, etc.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you,
so
Nicole.
articulate, doctor. I mean, you really went through the whole cycle and your great concrete examples of bad habits that you can form. And I mean, as you were saying, if there's a light source, it signals to you you're staring at something, which is your handheld gadget. Because you can say, no, I shut off the TV already. I'm not really talking to anyone, but you might still be checking email. It's almost a compulsion, no? Checking email, playing a game, or checking chats or chatting with friends. And you think you're relaxing already, but there is something there signaling your brain that you're not yet ready to sleep or you have to do something. So you don't feel as sleepy as you should or fall asleep right away like you should, and then you still have to wake up early, and go to work or do different things. And I mean, I guess with with that, I mean, it's true. Of course, the younger people, the younger generation will be more into the hand. But so I've noticed also a lot of boomers, like, thing.
Yeah,
Also, a lot of boomers are into that. So it would, I mean, boomers, if you're watching, that's why sometimes, like, maybe the boomers, I know a lot who like listen to the TV, but or the radio, but it's different if you are actively playing a game or checking chats and all of that.
correct.
So it's great
Yeah,
how you explain that and the whole cycle and how the lack of sleep really does the body damage. And I mean, I think even before, people would say, I'll sleep when I die, that kind of thing. But it does matter. You do start feeling it, guys. I can attest to that. I can attest to that. And before, it would be things like, you talk to your friends in person, face to face, if you had a sleepover, or even on the phone, telebabad, or you'd be driving. We didn't have cell phones yet, but if we decided to go on a road trip, it would be okay for you to drive and hardly get any sleep. But if you think, I'm just so glad that you mentioned the whole cycles of that, because if you're at home and you're resting and you still can't sleep, it might be the handheld gadget. It might
correct.
be that. So thank you for that, doctor. Now, okay, so we're talking about all these things. What about stress? And can you define stress? Is it like what does stress do to your heart health? I mean, we have physical stress now, doctor, and then we have like psychological stress or emotional stress. Can you just give us I guess overviews about the types of stresses or stress in general? Like how do you define it, and the stress that really is bad for your heart health in your 20s and onwards? Or
Yeah. So stress itself is really not that bad. So our response to stress is the one that is harming our bodies. The problem now is the stress now is, I think, to be fair, worse than before because now everything is instant.
yes,
So when you need something, you thought of things ahead, and then when you go went to the grocery, you had a plan, and then you'll get everything on one go. But
yes,
now, because everything's instant, when you have a problem, you don't think it's just you're living in the moment. You don't plan ahead.
yes,
And for example, if there's a conversation, there's a unwritten rule that you need to reply ASAP because before
yes,
you will, yeah, you will call, right? And you will call during the time that you think that the patient is not busy and is accepting a call. But now it's so easy to send a text even late at night. And of course, when you receive a text, there's a compulsion to reply.
mhm,
Same thing goes with work. So nowadays, it's not uncommon for people in their 20s who were really not accustomed to working and now getting their first job and now getting work even at home. And
yes,
they have to produce, they have a lot of deadlines,
mhm,
and there's a lot of distractions because of the different, different responsibilities that they have. So
mhm,
they might be forming a family, they might be starting a family, they might be now paying mortgages or maybe trying to pay off a car. So
yes,
they are now under a lot of stress that they might not be accustomed to when they were in their teens, when they, of course, if usually the family dynamics when you are in your teens, your parents will be the one to support you until you can fend off for yourself, and you were just basically living in the moment. But now you have a lot of responsibilities. So as physicians, we usually tell our younger uh, patients that the stress will really not go away. So whatever field that you go into, whether it be healthcare or business or contracting or the PWH or the government, there will be stress. The what we need to do is to manage our reaction to the stress. So we always tell them that the stress will never go away. What will happen is that you will have capacity to ignore or modify the stress and not react as urgently as possible. So because not all stressors or not all things need to be acted on urgently.
yes.
So
And
we,
there is that
yeah,
feeling, doctor. You're right. There's more
yeah,
pressure for younger people. And as someone who's not really younger, I find that pressure. There's pressure. I mean, even if it's just a friendly text or a question or an invitation, it's like I have to answer this. And we also have this.
correct.
I think in the Filipino culture, especially, it's sometimes difficult because we I mean, people draw too many conclusions from a short text or a short answer, or not being answered right away, like, oh, baka galit to sa akin, or bakit hindi niya pinapansin it. Everything is just too instant that
Yeah,
we just kind of jump from one thing to another, and then answer this. And if you answer 3 days late and it was just a hello, how are you, there's pressure, like, and then for work you feel that you do have to answer right away, and then people also get impatient,
yeah,
and
correct.
it's in our culture, like, oh, why aren't they answering me, da, 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 da. I need to know this now. Of course there are things that are really urgent, but also I think, I don't know, it's just my observation or my opinion that for our culture, it's um it's about not feeling like you didn't answer right away, like,
Yeah,
tend to add stress to it ourselves, and then we get offended also, or I've seen people get offended at not getting an answer right away. Well, sometimes there's no quick answer, so Yeah, the whole digital age, like really with having things in our hand literally and being instant, I think we're just really also gonna have to get used to it and, like calm down about it. Okay. So thank you. So thank you for that, doctor. I mean, you just went through it so well, and explained all of these things to us when it comes to stress and how we can manage it. Now, doctor, or manage our reactions to it, and maybe that's also a reminder to us not to be impatient with people or feel offended right away if they don't answer. I mean, we didn't used to get so offended when we used to call on the phone and leave a message or things like that. And some of us are just not used to, not knowing the reaction. Sometimes I prefer calling because text messages are, I can't tell your tone. I don't know exactly what you mean, so anyway, but I think a lot of people are used to texting, and I don't know how they understand each other with 3-word responses all the time.
Yeah,
But I've
yeah, or
been,
even acronyms.
yes, like what? But I've been accused of sending very long texts, and it's true, I do, because I want to clarify things. But okay, so doctor, when it comes to diet and nutrition, you already mentioned so many things about fast food, cooking at home, and preparing. Oh, by the way, also you said earlier, just to add to the stress, like you go to the grocery, you don't get to plan it. And then when you plan it nowadays, it feels like you're getting more stressed. No, I actually get stressed when every day or every other day, me personally, somebody says, "Oh, I forgot something. You have to get again in the grocery." Like, why do we have to make so many trips? Because everyone is paying attention to their phone also, and not maybe enough. Like before, we'd write it down on a piece of paper, and then we think of things, and it didn't feel stressful to take the time to count the inventory. Like, oh, we only have this left, and this is maybe we can do this menu. I don't know why with the gadgets that should make it easier to communicate and possibly remember things these days, it feels more stressful sometimes. You tend to forget more because you're jumping off to another task or another game or email or whatever it is. So yeah, I second the motion on that, doctor. But okay, with diet and nutrition, you already talked about it so much, and you gave such a good explanation, and you went through the whole cycle. Can you give us perhaps just maybe tips, especially those in their 20s, of just even how to kind of calibrate their diet a little, like what are some good ways to I guess sort of balance things when it comes to diet.
Yeah. So usually people in their 20s, especially the males, will imbibe on whey protein or creatine. We always tell them not to.
Mhm.
So proteins, artificial proteins and creatine, of course, can make their muscles pop, but it will tax our kidneys. And we've had a deluge of patients now with kidney disease, or premature kidney disease, because they're taking a lot of proteins and creatine. So of course, we said that the fast food industry is really booming right now, and not only the quality but the amount. So, for example, if you go to the websites of the American College of Cardiology, they will tell you that if you're eating one serving of meat, that means like a deck of cards size meat. But if you go to, for example, a fast food place and order something like a burger, sometimes the amount of the meat and the fat is really bigger than the what our standard serving should be. And the problem with the fast food is that they usually pair it with a lot of soft drinks. So
Yes.
the soft drinks themselves contain caffeine. So if you have a food source and you have a caffeine and a lot of carbs, then your body's tricked into thinking that this is really something that is good, and that makes it addicting.
Yeah.
So do you know why they pair, for example, fatty food with soft drinks or cola? It is used to wash the oily feeling from the mouth. So, for example, if you're eating really an oily food and you're just drinking water, the you will taste the oiliness after, and you will stop eating. But
Mhm.
if you're drinking cola, this washes away the oily feeling, and you tend to imbibe more on the oily food.
Mhm.
So we always tell them also not to do any crazy diet. So, for example, the keto diet
Mhm.
might sound like a good idea in their 20s, but it's actually not very good for the long term. So remember, we only get our calories from three sources. So it's either from carbs, proteins, or fat. So let's just put an example like a keto diet, meaning no carbs.
Mhm.
If you have a 2,500 calorie diet, and you eliminate the carbs, what will happen? The fat and protein will increase naturally because you have to fill the void lost by the carbs.
Mhm.
So when they get their blood test, then their cholesterol will skyrocket, their creatinine and their uric acid will skyrocket because of increased protein intake. Eat. So it's not really a good trade-off because the even if the sugar goes down, the cholesterol increases and the
Yeah.
creatinine increases. So we always tell them that if they will in go to a diet or a diet modification, it just should be a normal diet. With we need to just to look at the amount of calories and restrict those calories. And we need or they need to focus on the what we call the amount of macronutrients and not just dense calories. So if you're eating a lot of just calories without any nutrients, it might not be as good as if you're eating something like whole grains. So we emphasize eating whole grains. For example, if you have white bread, a better
Mhm.
alternative is wheat bread.
Mhm.
So wheat bread contains fiber. So that means also if you eat that wheat bread, you will get full earlier and full longer. So you will not overeat.
You feel.
So, and then of course, yeah,
Mm.
if you're eating, for example, animal fat, we often advise patients to eat, for example, if they're eating fish, the what we call tilapia or bangus are not actually the healthiest of fishes because they're being fed a lot of feeds and antibiotics, which are not actually healthy for us. So instead, they should be buying the more expensive stuff like tuna or salmon. Of course, the expense might scare them off, but we have to emphasize the benefits will happen later on. So if they eat a lot of bad fats now, they might end up clogging their arteries when they're in their 30s or 40s, and the medical expense might be higher than what they were saving by buying bad fat or buying bad meat. We also advise patients to try to cut down on carbs or sugar. So we know that, of course, in their 20s, it's so tempting to eat a lot of sweets, so juices.
Mhm.
They're ubiquitous in the supermarkets. Chocolates, they're very easy to get. When you're in the workplace, you're kind of hungry. You need something to increase your sugar level. You just eat something. Yeah. Of course, that is not bad if it's just once in a blue moon or every now and then. But when it becomes the main source of your calories, then it becomes a bad and might be deadly habit because it might lead to diabetes in the next year. So we know that if you get diabetes before the age of 40, the risk becomes for heart attack,
Mhm.
dialysis becomes terribly high.
Mhm.
So we just to let you know, we've had a lot of patients now who we would never suspect that they have diabetes in their 20s just because they were eating a lot of carbs
Yeah.
early on. Yeah. And a lot of patients now do have a lot of high blood pressure from
Mhm.
eating a lot of salt. So the societies will recommend that if possible, we limit the salt intake to as little as 1 teaspoon per day. So how do you limit the salt? So of course, the salt is essential for our food.
Yes.
So the trick is to replace salt with spices. So
Mhm.
the spices will add flavor without the danger of salt, which can increase the blood pressure and cause premature high blood pressure. And of course, we emphasize eating a lot of fruits and uh, vegetables because they not only make you feel full longer because they contain fiber, they also are rich in nutrients. And if they need more advice, of course, they can seek, of course, expert medical care or professional opinion from their nearby accredited primary care physician.
Yes, and a nutritionist. I mean, an actual doctor nutritionist. I
Yeah,
mean, people, doctor. Just to add a little bit to what you're saying, you expounded on it so much and said, well, just to point out some of the highlights of the things you said, just to remind the audience. It's one. It's our vanity in a way, or we think we are healthier if we. You were saying that males they will drink the high protein. I don't know what it is, supplements, but it's bad for their creatinine. So you're all full of muscles, but then you suddenly you have you have kidney failure or a kidney injury, and that's gonna stop you from being even healthier and being able to to speed up the process of getting muscles or exercising or thinking that it's okay because you're still young and you can do that. Then the other thing was also the fad diets. uh, I don't know if I mean, some people really advocate for it, but I really think you should ask your doctor. And it can't be like something that you really, really, I mean, go all into and go nuts on. And like, for some reason, some people can discipline themselves a lot when it comes to dieting because they see quick results, but it's hard to keep those results. And then apparently you also can injure your kidneys with things that you hear are healthy. It really depends on the individual, no, doc? I mean, as you were
correct.
saying,
Yeah,
yeah, you were reducing your sugar levels and you were getting thinner and feeling better about your self image, but then now your creatinine is up and you're still young. And then the other thing was, I'm glad you mentioned about having the burger and the cola, because yeah, I've actually seen that some people will just have water with the occasional burger or something, but the more they drink just water and they don't drink soda, they do get fuller faster. And I think that's a good way to make a small, really as just a small change that can help. Because then you won't be tempted to have like the second meal, the second,
correct.
the second meal.
So tempting. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I mean, or I've seen people now just split a soda, and I'm like, "Oh, I really admire that. I can't do that. I need a whole one for myself." But I'm glad you guys are doing that, drinking more water.
and,
Um,
yeah,
so even those small changes can just, probably over time help you a lot. So, so thanks for going through that, doctor. Okay, what about exercise? Because a lot of people, you did mention people working out earlier and wanting to get all buff, but what's the right amount of exercise and what kind of exercise, especially for younger people who may want to do it all and probably they can, and then they can rappel from the wall and do all these things. But what's the amount of exercise to keep us healthy? And is there
yeah.
on over exercising as well? But go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, correct, Nicole. So we know that, for example, you're sedentary. It's linked to an irregular heartbeat called atrial fibrillation. So
Mhm.
aside from getting obesity, you're also at risk for developing an irregular heartbeat and heart attack. So on the flip side, too much exercise can also lead to what we call atrial fibrillation. So again, the irregular heart.
Mhm.
So they studied a lot of cross-country skiers in Switzerland and people who do marathons and duathlons or triathlons, and they found out that the more the person is exercising endurance sports, particularly, the more the risk for irregular heartbeats. And of course, people in their 20s are more adventurous.
Yes.
So we've had a lot of patients who actually suffer from injuries during sports when in their 20s, as again, because their frontal cortex of the brain is not yet developed. They're easily, or they think that they're invincible. They're easily fooled to doing a lot of things that are foolhardy and not really well thought of. That's why they are vulnerable to suffering from injuries. So my advice for people in their 20s, you also have to think about the future. So I'm having a lot of friends or patients now in their 40s or 50s, and they were playing basketball before, and they're really into competitive basketball. I'm not saying it's bad, but Now they have bad knees. They need to undergo ACL repair. So that's the ligament that was torn because of playing basketball. So my advice is just to do regular exercise. So the general advice is, if possible, 30 minutes at least of light to moderate exercise every other day. And if possible, the exercise should be something that they can do that will not injure them. So
Mm-hmm.
sedentary lifestyle, bad. Too much exercise, too strenuous exercise, also not good, or at least based on studies. And if possible, avoid injuries, because injuries when you're young, you might not feel
Yeah.
it, but when you're getting older, you might have chronic back pain or maybe bad knees. And of course, if you have chronic back pain or bad knees in the future, then you'll get obese because you're not exercising,
Yeah.
and you will get into lots of troubles when you're obese, when you have already heart conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So if if you're thinking about what are the examples of light to moderate exercise, so that means just walking or jogging. Doing household work is actually good news, considered light
Good
exercise.
news for me this week.
Pilates, yeah, Pilates is also considered, and yoga considered light exercise. But you have to do it consistently. Consistency is the key. We don't advocate being a weekend warrior. So that means if you exercise during the weekends, you actually put unnecessary strain to your heart or to the lungs, because you're not training it to do it regularly. And then suddenly you explode during the weekend and do a lot of crazy stuff. So
You
that's
plan
not
something,
recommended.
do something.
Yeah.
It's home. It's not remember the weekend.
So, in the young individual, it's actually not difficult to get them into exercising,
Mhm.
but we have to emphasize that they need to take time for it and be disciplined enough. They might not see the benefit now, but of course, if they have friends or they have relatives who are still relatively in the same age group, maybe 10 years older, and they can ask them if their backs are already hurting or their knees already
Yes.
shot, then yeah. So then, if they share stories of the things that they wish they did when they're in their 20s, then they might be convinced that this is really a good habit and worthy habit to form when they're still young. And they have just to look ahead and not just focus on the present. Because it's a general observation now that people in the in their 20s and 30s are really a little bit self-centered. So they just focus on their self. Then now they really don't have the foresight. So I think it's part of the age group. So
Mhm.
maybe it's because they're young. That's why they don't yet think of the future. But maybe it's our goal to instruct them to maybe go beyond the next 4 or 5 years and think about 10 years or 20 years ahead. Thank you, Nicole.
I hope they can do that for themselves. No, think about their
Yeah,
future, not just because they're young and self-centered. But there's also like I hope you all can also think of other people. This is just my opinion. Just insert
yeah,
myself here, because yes, I've experienced a kind of self-centeredness. Like, were we like that before? Because like or I'm not saying that everyone is like that, but there is the world doesn't actually, because I think maybe because of all the instant stuff, the world doesn't revolve around you can't get things really instantly. So there's an importance
correct.
even with themselves and in their relationships. But yes, if you just want to think of yourself, keep doing that. But think of your future too. I mean, doctors here to help everyone, self-centered or not. And what was I going to say? Also, with the exercises, also so you see the not being able to exercise at all or much, and you also see the overdoing it. And even just you mentioned basketball. I mean, I don't even really play basketball, but when I did the few times, I really enjoyed it. Somebody just like very competitively, this guy smashed into me and my knee hurt. So I was like, see, I guess that can happen to people who really play it. And of course, there's that thing when somebody just, fouls you and it's like it's a dirty trick.
Yeah.
To get into a fight there on court. I've seen so many fights on court. Like, that was a dirty blow. So yeah, these things happen. So just, I guess, everything in moderation, and you still be enjoying life anyway, and enjoying your sports and all that. And doctor, okay, do you have any just any kind of other recommendations for, well, no, we've already talked about the lack of sleep, getting proper sleep, um the diet, exercise, um any other lifestyle recommendations, or like what is the key message that you'd like to deliver to people, especially in their 20s? Because as you said, this is a time when some may be starting families, or it's an adjustment, they're starting work, they just got out of school before. It is, you just suddenly, oh, not used to it. And then you can have lots of free time or hardly any free time. And it is a big adjustment, and there's stress that comes along with it, whether you recognize it right away or not.
Yeah. So thank you, Nicole. A few things. So people in their 20s should stop thinking that they're invincible. So I'm also guilty of this. So when I was in my 20s, I didn't care about doing a lot of bad things like basketball, or doing a lot of exercises that might harm my body in the future. So because the overarching mentality then was, I'm invincible, I'm strong, I'm really very young, I should be living my life.
Mm.
So they should instead focus on looking at the future and think that whatever they do, the habits they form in their 20s will be the foundation, whether it's good or bad, of how their body will be in the next 20, 30 years. And that includes, of course, what we call general health screening, like medical tests. So before, it was really unheard of to have a medical check when in your 20s.
Yes.
They will call you, yeah, they will call you a sissy for seeing a doctor for something,
Parent
for a
teacher, what
prevent.
is that? Yeah.
Yeah. But nowadays, help is very easy to reach. So either medical health or mental health help, you can easily reach a professional. And it's even companies are now doing screening tests for people in their 20s. It's not anymore a taboo. So
Yeah.
we encourage the general population in their 20s to start taking, for example, cholesterol tests,
Mhm.
screening for diabetes, screening for kidney disease, because again, there are a lot of people now in their 30s or even late 20s who suffer from heart attacks, or already have high blood pressure and
Mhm.
diabetes. So most of the time, these are conditions that might not have symptoms beforehand.
Yeah.
So they might not have symptoms of high blood pressure, and only a medical professional trained to get the blood pressure accurately uh, can diagnose or screen for high blood pressures. Also, the test for diabetes is an easy blood test. So, and most of the time, there's no symptom. So you need really to have yourself tested.
Would that be
So
like
secondly,
the blood test where they take your blood sugar fasting, and your
yeah,
the 3 months average, or is it also,
correct.
if it's just the, because sometimes people, when I talk to them, misunderstand this. They do the pin prick test on the finger, and that's just your sugar level. Now it's different, so
Uh,
I just wanted to clear that up.
yeah. So the HbA1c, or 3 months average, is actually more informative for us.
Mhm.
So next is, of course, be updated in your vaccines. So vaccines are important. They're not just for children. Of course, third is have a good uh, idea of how you want your body to be in the next few years. So if you think that you want to be healthy after 10, 20 years, then maybe you need to start investing in doing a cleaner diet, more exercise, really being more mindful of your health. Because as we said, the 20s is really the start of being an adult. So if you're not just reliant on your parents, you have to make decisions on your own. And this is really the time to form good habits. If you have good habits at an early age, then chances are those good habits will persist until in your 60s or 70s, and
Mhm.
will help you a lot in your twilight years.
Mhm.
So next, of course, is to have screening for what we call cancers. So, uh, females oftentimes, because they have the mentality that they are invincible, will not do their monthly breast exam. So that's important. So pap smears every 3 years for females also. Testicular cancer screening for males. So these are very important because if you're able to screen for them, the earlier that they are diagnosed, just in case, the better the outcome, the long-term outcome. Then, of course, needless to say, avoid vices. People in their 20s are really tempted to do a lot of things, especially because, for example, they're stressed in their workplace, or a lot of smokers. And of course, if you really want to belong, sometimes there's a temptation to smoke and the smoking can be a bonding session for coworkers. But if if they do this early, chances of them persisting into the adulthood, their late 30s or 40s, will become higher. So the earlier they prevent smoking or stop smoking, the better it is for their bodies. And lastly, if for any reason they have any questions, feel free to seek the help of a professional healthcare professional or any of our doctors in Makati Med, or your doctors, your parents' doctors, your father's doctors, your mother's doctors, because sometimes the internet might be a confusing place, especially for young individuals. So we have a lot of patients who are trusting Dr. Google and doing a lot of research for themselves. We're not saying that's bad, but sometimes the information may not be applicable to that person. It might be applicable to another person, and the information might not be
It's also
tailor fit.
summarized, and it's not. It has to be individualized, like you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. So
Gonna
don't be
Google.
afraid
Sorry, doctor,
to
interrupted.
ask for help.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like, you were just saying
Yeah.
about Google, though, that like if you're gonna also look and go to just advise to go to really credible sources like the Mayo Clinic or something, because you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
One, the first thing that pops up, you don't know what site you're going to, and it's just like basic information that you'll be surprised at the difference. And then,
Correct.
of course, talk to a doctor, and they will tell you there that you should see a doctor. But also the sources, like people don't often think of that. It's just the first thing that pops up or something like that. There's also a credibility issue with a lot of or it's an article that somebody wrote based on her tour or something, and you're like, it's okay, that's those are just observations, it's okay, it's a great read, but go also to, because people will go to some credible sources also, and go to your doctor, as you were saying. And doctor, you mentioned the smoking and bonding. I think for a lot of younger people now, it's I mean, I think the smokers are left out now.
Uh,
I mean, like, but I know what you mean. There, about peer pressure for different things, not just smoking, like at work, even let's say eating unhealthily or having a
correct.
drink,
Yeah.
what have you. And before, I remember, I mean, I knew people before who, when we were in our 20s, they would have so much stress and not get sleep. They would sleep for work. And the thing was, it's always for work. They didn't even like actually have fun, do the things that you're saying, like, but they felt invincible because it was for work. And then they're making a lot of money. But at some point, some of them did feel that I can't do it anymore, or they did feel that. So the reason for some might be, but I'm working because I'm saving up for the future, but there's also a life balance, no, doc? Anyway, you take the floor now, doctor, and say whatever else you'd like. I just want to mention that because some might be, yeah, but I'm working, but
Yeah.
everything I do is work. Okay, but that's also not good for you.
Yeah. So it's what we call the balance is really the thing that is difficult to do. So because for example, imagine if you're earning a lot and you don't have time to spend
Mm.
and you're already sick. So you can't travel, you can't do whatever hobby that you want, because you're either too busy working, or when you're not working, you're sleeping or you're sick.
Mhm.
So the only way that we'll be able to really live a full life is that if you're able to be healthy when we already have enough money. So remember, when you're young, you have a lot of energy, no money, a lot of time. When
Yeah.
you're in your middle age, you have some money, you have some energy, and you have some time. But when you're already older, you might have a lot of money, not a lot of energy. You might be sick, and not a lot of time. So sometimes it's really a balance between working, getting the stress of work, and of course thinking about the future. You don't want to be an old guy dependent on oxygen, cannot travel because he has or she has heart failure. So they also need to think a lot of about the future and how to balance the work, the stress, and the income. And last point is there's now a focus on mental health. So this actually goes into the what you said, Nicole. So the of course the pressure of the instant gratification. We're so accustomed to have everything instant. When you eat, you have instant dopamine. When you receive a message, why it's so tempting to read a message at night is that because when you receive a message, there's an instant dopamine hit. Someone out there spend time to message you. Someone out there cares for you, and that is to the body addicting. On the other hand, the instant gratification culture is really harming us because the expectation of everyone is that everything is instant. We have no more patience to do things the old-fashioned way, to wait or to accumulate all the tasks that we need to do and to do it at once. Now, we're so distracted. Everything calls for our attention.
And it
So
stresses us out because we feel frustrated, you know.
correct. Yeah, and that is actually knowing at our mental health because of the instant gratification. And when there's lack of instant gratification, we're kind of stressed because we're so accustomed to it. So I know that, of course, it's easy to preach that we really need to just balance our mental health with our stresses. But if you, just to say that if anyone here in their 20s need professional medical assistance, it's not taboo. So
Yes.
it's easy to see a doctor, and it's not like if you're seeing a psychiatrist. Before, it was when you see a psychiatrist, you're branded as a loony or a crazy person. But now it's really the norm. More people now are seeing psychiatrists, professional help, because it's really helping them a lot. And it's again, it's not taboo, so it's already the norm. So just in case anyone is feeling frustrated and suicidal, it's not the end of the world. So you just need to focus more on the positive things, and then of course seek professional medical help. Thank you, Nicole.
Please do what doctor said. Thank you, doctor, for being on the show today, for covering the topic so holistically. And I wanna see you in person. I mean, not because anyone I know is sick or I'm sick, but I do hope I get to, see you in person, just say hello, reach out to you in person. So not instant. Okay, well, thank you for being on the show today, doctor. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And of course, you can play the show over and over again on the platforms that we have it on so that you can learn more and just really get to digest what Dr. 𝗪𝗪𝗁 so eloquently said on our show today. Well, we'll see you again next time on Health Line with Makati Med. Thanks, folks. Thanks, doctor. See you next
Thank
time.
you, Nicole.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Healthline with expert doctors from Makati Med, giving you the chance to interact, uplifting your lifestyle. Moderated by Nicole Jacinto. Tune in again next week for your weekly dose of Healthline.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.